Welcome to Business Resilience Decoded. I am your host, Vanessa Mathews, the founder and chief resilience officer of Asfalis Advisors. Today, we're going to be talking about the podcast rebrand. I am so excited. This has been a long time coming. So you just have myself and Jon Seals today to help talk about what's been happening behind the scenes. So Jon, how did we get here with this new brand?
Well, we've done this rebrand 3 times. So it's par for the course. But as far as the rebrand itself, a lot of it was because when the podcast first came up, the website was kind of an afterthought. You know, the main purpose was the podcast. Let's get the podcast going and figure out what we're doing there. And then we'll deal with the website. Well, we got the podcast ready, and then the website, we pulled off a template which was different shades of blue. Well, Asfalis and DRJ, their main color is both red. We've had a blue website for a couple years now. And so we decided that it would be a good time to rebrand. And Vanessa reached out to some folks who have done a great job for us. Talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, Haven Creative. They're actually headquartered in Charlotte. I was talking to them and I said, we've got to redo our podcast rebrand. And actually, a friend of mine told me, she said, I think you have great podcasts, but as I scroll on Instagram and Pinterest and on my podcast app, she said, I would never listen to your podcast because the brand. And my feelings were really hurt. But I appreciated her honesty. But she said, I have so much coming through my feed. If the aesthetics don't look the way that I want them to, then I'm not going to stop and listen. And so I really took that into consideration. And the Haven Creative team, they are a community branding and digital marketing company. And so they really helped us, to Jon's point, like think through what are our color schemes? How do our logos even show up? And how can people clearly understand who's behind the scenes working this? I think this has done a much better job of depicting who we are and the partnership.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that, and then once they got us the information, then Amy Finnewald, our web editor at DRJ, she went through and redid our website. We've also made some other changes. Tell us a little bit about the other things that are coming their way.
Yeah, so one thing that is going to change is we're going to stick to the 15-minute time block to save Jon Seals some time. We're also going to make sure that you guys hear from me as your host more. I've had conversations with people in the industry of, resilience, and they often say, I want to hear more from you too, right? So we do a lot of interviewing, and we're going to keep that up. But in addition to that, we're going to make sure that Vanessa is talking to you and that I'm bringing something to the table for you guys to take advantage of. We also are going to take some time to listen to you. We want to know more about where you are, what cities you're in, what types of things you are focused on or what you want to hear about. And that way we continue to do our job. And that's to serve you and the community that you guys all involve and that you're a part of. So we're going to take some time to do surveys and to do some outreach to really get some clarity behind the scenes on what that looks like for you. We will also, as you have probably seen, we've added a Business Resilience Decoded podcast page to LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. So we're excited about that. We also want to grow our subscribers on those platforms to make sure that we're reaching you in the places that you guys receive and download your own content. We also are going to open up more communication channels to you. So we have 2 email addresses. So if you're a Asfalis, person or a DRJ person, you can send us a note at podcast@asfalisadvisors.com, ASFALIS advisors.com, or podcast@drj.com. And that way, any questions that you have or things that you want to share, feel free to do that. Many of you reach out to me on LinkedIn often, so I want to say thank you and please continue to do that. So those are a couple of things that are changing.
So What is not changing?
What's not changing is the name of the podcast. We are Business Resilience Decoded. What's not changing is your host, Vanessa Mathews. What's not changing is the audience that we serve, which is pretty interesting because we serve a business resilience community. And when I say that, for us, that means risk managers, crisis managers, business continuity practitioners, and even some of you who may be in the field of cybersecurity or physical security. Additionally, DRJ and Asfalis advisors are both emerging businesses. So Bob and I are entrepreneurs. So there's an entrepreneurship side to this podcast as well. So we're going to continue to serve the business community, and that will not change. And the last piece, which I think I mentioned this too, we will continue to seek out guests on the podcast because we want to hear from other people and different perspectives. The whole goal of why we did this, we just, talked about it. This podcast started in September 2018. And how many episodes are we at, John?
We're at 45. 45. Or by the time this runs, somewhere around 45-ish.
45-ish. So that's been great progress in a 2-year time frame. But we started this to build a global community of practitioners around the world. And so we want to still make sure that we're living up to the goals that we set when we started out. So we're excited. We want to say thank you guys for downloading, for subscribing, and for sharing. And we're also looking for new ideas. So if you guys have new ideas or suggestions, as you take a listen to this podcast, document, share those on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, or even send us an email. We would be happy to make sure that we take into account some of the things that you guys think that we should consider.
But the big thing is that we want to engage our listeners, our watchers, just maintain that network that we have. DRJ has such a large network of business continuity planners and emergency management and the ITDR people and, Vanessa and all of her clientele. I think it's really good for us to reach out to those people and find out what they want and what they can share with the audience.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Thanks for tuning in to Business Resilience Decoded. I am your host, and thank you for subscribing, sharing, downloading, and look out for future episodes.